Good morning. Good morning. Okay, so LabKey server, as I hope you all know, is written in Java. So Java is pretty important. We kind of need the Java runtime to be there for LabKey to work, which means all of you and all of your deployments have copies of Java. And as I hinted, or not so subtly hinted yesterday, Oracle is making a bunch of changes as far as Java is concerned. And I'm going to walk through what those changes are and what, at least, how we've interpreted those changes and what it means to our development process and some suggestions, recommendations for you and how it might affect you and the way you deploy LabKey and deploy Java at your institutions. So the first thing I talked about yesterday, and I won't talk about a lot today, is just the fact that Oracle made a big jump from Java 8. It was really from Java 8 to Java 9, but that affects 10 and 11. So basically, we had to do a whole lot of work on our side to get all of these libraries, all these dependencies that we have, and our own code working in Java 9. We've been doing that for the last year and a half. That was a bunch of work by a bunch of the developers in LabKey. And we're now in 18.3 going to be compatible with Java 11. So that's kind of the work side of things. The other pieces, we'll start with this chart. So this visualization brought to you by the LabKey Visualization API. So it might look a little familiar to you, but I thought that was a good chance to kind of exercise that API and give you I think this visual kind of captures one of the other big changes that Oracle has made. So what are we seeing here? So this chart shows 10 releases of Java, starting back here in 2002 when they released Java 4, Java 5, Java 6, Java 7. So all these kind of old versions of Java, followed by a couple of current ones, and then the a couple future releases that they've announced. So what are we seeing? We've got here on the left-hand side the general availability, or really release date of each version of Java, and over here on the right-hand side we have the date of end of life, or really end of public support for each of those versions of Java. So what that means is, through this whole time, Oracle, well, Sun in this case, and later it was Sun was acquired by Oracle, was providing security updates and reliability updates and patches and all these fixes to keep that runtime working, to get rid of bugs, to get rid of security holes. So that's, this is the period through which Oracle was supporting that version of Java publicly. So anyone can go and get these patches, get these updates, and get their runtime all secure and reliable and everything else. So they did that, in the case of Java 4 for maybe, whatever that's saying, 7 years or so, 6 years for 5, 7 or so years here, 5 years for Java 7. So what do we see here? Starting with Java 9, which came out a year ago. Very different cadence here. For 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So they have switched the cadence to a 6-month release cycle. So every 6 months, a new version of Java is coming out. Now, these aren't necessarily as major a change from version to version as what we saw from 4 to 5 or from 8 to 9. These are fairly small. They're smaller, more incremental releases. At least that's what I expect, because they only do so much in the 6-month time frame. So obviously they're coming out much more quickly. What else is happening? Before we had a couple of 3, 4 years overlap, 2 years of overlap, a couple years of overlap, year and a half of overlap, so that you can continue to use one version of, one supported version of Java, and then you can migrate over to a new supported version of Java at whatever time kind of makes sense for you. What they're doing now with each of these releases, on the day that Java 9 released, on the day that Java 10 released, Java 9 was immediately end-of-lifed. No more support in public. Likewise, Java 11 came out last week, last Tuesday. Immediately, Java 10, end of support. Now, Oracle, in all these cases, Oracle has been happy to take your money or take your institution's money to support older versions of Java for a longer period of time, past the public release time frame. But if you're just downloading Java, using Java in the public, they will end all support for the previous version when the new version comes out. So any questions about that? Okay, so then, in addition to that, Oracle is starting to charge a subscription fee for all production use of Java. So this is a subscription fee for the Oracle runtime. It's kind of their commercial runtime, which up until now has been free for everyone to use for any purpose, on your desktop, on a server, in a hosted environment, et cetera. They're changing that. They're going to require a license fee. So this is starting with Java 11, which again came out last week. So if you download the Oracle version of Java and use it for any production purpose, you need to pay a license fee to Oracle. So that's what their subscription facts say. And this is the URL here for the subscription FAQ, and that subscription fee starts at $25 per CPU per month that you get to pay to Oracle for every single production Java runtime that you have. Gets a little cheaper in volume. If you have 10,000 of these things or 1 million of these things, you get a little discount. But and like I said yesterday, I don't see any exemptions for I'm an academic organization, or I'm a nonprofit, or I'm doing research, or I'm doing something else. It's basically, they say, if you're using it in production, you have to pay this fee. Now, some good news. Development and testing on the Oracle JDK is still free. It's really just production use, however exactly they define that. They will continue, so I said there are these 6-month releases, right? Every 6 months, and support ends immediately. Well, it's really public support ends immediately. There are certain versions of Java that Oracle is going to provide, for which Oracle is going to provide long-term support, or LTS. So they are targeting specific versions of Java as the LTS versions. So that would be Java 8. They've announced Java 8, 11, 17, all are going to be long-term support versions. So those are ones that, if you subscribe, Oracle will continue to support that for years and years and years and years. So I think Java 8 maybe through 2025 is what they've promised at this point. But they'll probably extend that if people keep paying them. And then 11, which just came out, is going to be a long-term support version, et cetera. But that's only from Oracle if you subscribe. The other thing to note is that basically Java 9 and Java 10, they are dead. They're end of life. They're not being supported. They've been end of life at the point that the next one was released. And then Java 8 will be, the end of public updates for Java 8 is going to be this January. So at that point, Java 8, you'll no longer get security fixes or updates to Java 8 unless you subscribe. So the good news is there are some options, some other options. So far I've been talking primarily about, I've been talking about Java in general, but then also talking about the Oracle commercial runtime, which is what up until now LabKey has supported. We've said we don't support any other, we don't support OpenJDK, we don't support any of these other versions of Java, only the Oracle commercial runtime is what LabKey supports. There are some other options beyond that commercial version, which is now subject to a license fee. So there is OpenJDK. So interestingly, Oracle essentially has 2 JDKs, 2 runtimes that they ship. One is called, so there's an Open JDK, which is the open source version of Java that pretty much every mainstream runtime, every mainstream JDK builds on top of, including the commercial Oracle runtime. So that commercial runtime builds on the Open JDK. But Oracle also releases kind of the fully open source version of the JDK and makes that generally available. Other folks do as well, which I'll talk about in a minute. So this is GPL license. This is true open source Java, which we've actually never really had before. Java has always been free to use, but hasn't been completely 100% open source. Now there's a completely open source version of the Java JDK, which is great. So as I said, all the other implementations derive from this. And there's not, inherently there's no long-term support for OpenJDK. Oracle will support it only until the next release. And then no more security fixes, no more updates. And this, I'm kind of giving a spoiler alert here, but this is where we're focusing for 18.3. We're going to focus on this Oracle OpenJDK. That's what we've started testing on. So I said that OpenJDK 11 released last Tuesday, and on that day, across our development team and our test team, we started installing that on all of our machines for our personal development and testing. We installed it on our Team City agents, which run our continuous integration system that runs all of our test suites. All of those got swapped out for OpenJDK 11, so that we can kind of do the final testing on that before and fix any problems that might show up before we release 18.3. Now there's some other ways to get OpenJDK, right? So this is open source. Other folks are making builds of this source code. They're making modifications. They're shipping it. They're supporting it. So some of those options, just to mention them, Adopt OpenJDK is a community group, community-driven project that has promised to produce builds of the OpenJDK and to support those builds with long-term support. So what that would mean, in theory, what they're going to do is, as Oracle commits bug fixes, security patches to the current version of Java at any given time, these folks are essentially going to backport those fixes to older versions. To let's say, it's Java 13 has come out and Oracle is making security patches there, but they're still supporting Java 11. They will backport all the security fixes from the Java 12 and Java 13 lines into OpenJDK 11. That's at least what they've promised. It's a fairly new thing. We haven't seen how that's all going to work, or where their resources are going to come from, or which companies are going to support them or fund them. But we're going to keep our eye on it, because that's pretty promising. With that, we could say, well, we're going to support Java 11 for a couple of years, let's say, if this actually comes to pass. Other possibilities: Red Hat and other Linux distributions provide access to OpenJDK, just sort of through their distributions, and some of them have promised to do the same sort of thing, to support Java with security fixes and reliability patches. And then there's some other commercial options. Zulu is an option that comes up quite a bit. They're a company that they kind of build enhanced garbage collectors and other things, sort of specialized capabilities within the Java runtime, and they have a free version of OpenJDK they distribute, and they've offered support packages as well that I think are cheaper than Oracle's. So they've said we will support Java for we'll do a long-term support contract for a significantly lower price than what Oracle is charging. So we'll see how all these pan out. IBM, SAP, and others have promised similar sorts of things. So we're going to keep our eye on this, but these options. But really, for 18.3, we're we're focused on one thing, which is getting to OpenJDK 11 with the builds directly from Oracle. So to talk about our plan in a little more detail, yeah, as I said, we're performing all of our development, our testing, and our hosting on Oracle OpenJDK 11, and then 12, and then 13, et cetera. So that's in process right now. We're now, most of our development team has switched over to OpenJDK 11. We're working on getting the hosted instances that we have switched over to OpenJDK 11. That'll happen over the next few weeks as leading up to our 18.3 release. We are going to continue what I call limited testing of the commercial Oracle runtime. So as long as their license allows us to continue to develop and test on their commercial runtime, we'll continue to do that. A lot of you are going to continue using that. Maybe some of you will choose to go the subscription route with Oracle. If you do, we want to make sure we have something to support you. And by limited, I mean we will probably run test suites on, say, a weekly basis on that particular runtime. We don't expect a lot of differences, right? The commercial runtime is built on top of this OpenJDK, right? So we don't expect a lot of differences or problems, but we always need to test in order to say that yes, indeed, we support that scenario. We expect to very quickly add support for the new OpenJDK releases as they come out, and we will likely stop supporting the old ones pretty quickly as well. So for instance, 9 and 10 that came out and disappeared pretty quickly, we're never going to support those. There's no point in saying that we work with Java 9 when no one is supporting Java 9, like similarly with Java 10. So specifically for the next few releases, this kind of translates to in November we release LabKey 18.3. That version will support Oracle OpenJDK 11 and the commercial Oracle runtime, both version 8 and 11. So we'll continue to support Java 8 for 18.3, but not after that. Our 19.1 release, which comes in March of next year, we expect to support OpenJDK 11 and OpenJDK 12. So also what happens in March of that year is OpenJDK 12 comes out. So it comes out kind of at the same time as our release. So it makes sense for us to continue supporting 11 and 12 in that release. Likewise, we'll support the commercial versions of those as well. And we'll remove support for Java 8 at that point. And really what we plan to do is, at the point we branch for our 18.3 release, we'll just remove Java 8 support at that point, and LabKey will start taking advantage of the features that, that came along in 9, 10, and 11. Because right now, if we're, for 18.3, we're continuing to support Java 8, we can't take advantage of any of the Java 9 or 10 or 11 features that have come out, not until we remove that Java 8 support. And this, of course, is because in January, support for Java 8, public support for Java 8 goes away. And we don't, our philosophy is we don't want to support a version of Java that is not publicly supported out there in the world. We don't want you running runtimes that are insecure, that don't have security patches, and there's no way for you to get those security patches publicly. And then in July, we released 19.2, and that will, I suspect, support just Java 12, so OpenJDK 12 and the Oracle runtime. So we're going to, because of that rapid cadence that Oracle's introducing, we're going to kind of go pretty rapidly ourselves in terms of that support. All right, so any questions at this point about what we're doing? Any of that? Ollie.
Given that the JRE 11 is supposed to have a much longer LTS, why are you not choosing to at least provide limited?
Well, it's open to discussion here, but and I think I'm interested to see what happens, especially with Adopt OpenJDK, some of these community-driven LTS things. So at this point, the only way to get long-term support for Java 11 is to pay that subscription to Oracle or somebody else. That's it. Because that long-term support, yeah, it's long-term support if you pay Oracle. And I'm open for feedback. If folks plan to do that, I mean, you probably haven't decided yet, but if you plan to do that, let us know. We'll take that into consideration. Honestly, talking to people kind of one-on-one, I don't expect a lot of, and the fact that we're moving we're doing a complete 180 here, right? We've said we only support the Oracle runtime, period, end of story, up until 18.3, in which we say we strongly recommend the OpenJDK. You can still use the commercial one, of course. We will still support as long as we can. But I think we're kind of turning around and saying, well, we recommend using the OpenJDK, and we've done a lot of work to make sure it works on OpenJDK. So, if there's an avenue to get long-term support, especially if it's free and community supported, I think we're going to be open to continuing to support Java 11 for a long period of time. I'm not really betting on it. So, certainly we know we're going to have to, we're going to make sure that we're compatible with, with say 12 when it comes out and 13 when it comes out and 14. At what point we deprecate the old ones, I think it's still a bit of an open question. But I'd want to get feedback. I know internally at LabKey, we're just going to cycle through these for the most part and just always be on the current one. All right, so a few humble recommendations for you. I'm not a lawyer. I've glanced through their licensing information and interpreted it in certain ways. Your legal team, your licensing team may interpret it differently. Your IT team, your procurement, teams, they may have already made a decision about which direction they're going. They may have negotiated a site license or a volume discount or something with Oracle or somebody else. So talk to them. Maybe they have a plan. If they don't know anything about this, let them know what's coming, because it could be a problem if they're not planning ahead. But obviously you need to figure out what your institution's policy and licensing and everything else is with regard to the JRE. And then, of course, you're all going to install LabKey 18.3 shortly after we release it. And that would be a good time to go ahead and switch over to OpenJDK 11 or the commercial runtime if that's what you choose. Because keep in mind, Java 8 is going away pretty soon. So it'd be a good time to start testing your code and, on your staging server, testing LabKey itself on OpenJDK 11. And then, we always recommend this. This is not really changing that much, just because Oracle happens to be changing this major number more frequently. We've always recommended that you run with the latest Java runtime, because that's the only way you get those security fixes and patches and everything else. So I didn't really highlight this, but within each of those 6-month releases, there is Oracle is planning to do every 2 months kind of a patch release, a security fix release. And so, you want to be picking those up. You want to be picking up each release as it comes out. So yeah, every 2 months to keep your runtime secure. So that's about all. If you're deploying LabKey and using LabKey out of the box, that's pretty much all you need to do. If you're building Java modules, now is a good time to switch your development and your testing to Java 11. Make sure your code is ready for these changes. I've got some steps here. It's fairly straightforward. On a development machine, you just download and extract your JDK. This is the OpenJDK link, the Oracle OpenJDK download location. You need to make sure you're on the most recent IntelliJ. Obviously, you need to sync up the source code to our most recent changes, which there are changes in the build, all the libraries, all the code that we've had to update to be compatible with Java 11. Configure your environment variables and IntelliJ. As I say here, we've had this internally. We still are doing work on, say, 18.2, which doesn't support OpenJDK 11. So IntelliJ makes it very easy to switch JDKs back and forth. You can install the Java 8, install Java 11, and just switch back and forth as you need to if you switch branches or whatever you're doing. And then, just in general, build and test your code on JDK 11. Make sure that your modules and your code is compatible.